Everyone thinks the MSI Thin 15 is the perfect cheap gaming laptop. But here is the thing. If you buy it just because it looks thin and has an RTX sticker, you might either be thrilled or seriously disappointed. Because after 2 weeks of real-world testing, commuting with it, gaming on it, and even editing video on it, I realized the whole story is way more complicated than the marketing makes it look. The Thin 15 is not the underpowered trap I expected, but it is also not the magic budget beast people hype it up to be. And there is one specific thing I discovered that completely changed how I feel about this laptop. Before we dive into what I discovered, quick heads up. If you are already leaning toward the MSI Thin 15, I will drop my recommended configurations and the best current price links in the description. But do not click away yet, because what I found in performance, thermals, and build might save you from buying the wrong version. So, why did I even bother with the MSI Thin 15 when there are bulkier, more powerful gaming laptops out there? Simple, I needed something I could actually throw in a backpack without feeling like I was carrying a cinder block, but still strong enough to run modern titles and handle some Premiere Pro editing. My old laptop was a thick gaming brick that had great performance, but I dreaded taking it anywhere. The charger alone felt like lifting a dumbbell. I wanted something slimmer, lighter, and ideally under that mid-range budget where you are not paying a premium just for RGB and flashy marketing. I kept seeing the Thin 15 pop up. Intel 12th or 13th gen chips, up to RTX 4050 or 4060 in some regions. 15.6-inch 144Hz display, relatively light for a gaming machine. On paper, it sounded like the perfect compromise. But I have been burned by budget gaming laptops before: loud fans, thermal throttling, dim screens, junk keyboards, so I went in skeptical. First thing I tested was what most people care about: gaming. The unit I used had an Intel Core i5 from the 12th or 13th Gen H series, and an RTX 4050 laptop GPU with 8 GB of VRAM, paired with 16 GB of RAM and a 512 GB SSD. In a cool room on the balanced performance profile, I got roughly 80 to 100 FPS in Valorant at 1080p low to medium, around 70 to 90 FPS in Fortnite on performance mode, and about 60-ish FPS in Apex Legends at tweaked medium settings. Not bad for a thin chassis, but then I pushed it with heavier games. Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p medium with DLSS quality hovered in the 45 to 60 FPS range, depending on the area. Shadow of the Tomb Raider sat around 70 to 80 FPS on high settings at 1080p. The RTX 4050 version actually holds its own for 1080p gaming, as long as you are willing to tweak settings instead of maxing everything. Here is where it gets interesting: thermals. Under sustained gaming, the CPU regularly climbed into the mid to high 80s Celsius, sometimes spiking around 90. The GPU mostly stayed in the 70s. Fans, oh, they get loud. Not jet engine loud like some older machines, but loud enough that you will not want to game without headphones. The good news is it does not constantly slam into thermal throttling, but you can feel that MSI is right on the edge of what this thin chassis can handle. Then I looked at the display. Yeah, it is 15.6 inches and 144 Hz, which is great for competitive games, but brightness sits around the mid-200 nits range. Indoors, fine. Near a window or bright room, it starts to look washed out. Color accuracy is okay for casual content and light creative work, but if you are a serious color editor or photographer, this is not the panel you want to rely on. Next up, build quality and portability. The Thin 15 is mostly plastic, and you can feel it. There is a bit of flex in the lid and keyboard deck if you press hard, but not enough to feel fragile. At around 1.8 to 1.9 kilograms, it is very manageable for a 15-inch gaming laptop. In a backpack, it feels way more like a normal laptop than a gaming tank. The trade-off, of course, is that it does not feel premium. It feels functional. Battery life was my other big test. Doing light work, web browsing, documents, streaming some YouTube on Wi-Fi with brightness at about 60%, I was seeing around 5 to 6 hours. Start gaming on battery, and it drops fast into the 1 to 2 hour zone in performance tanks, like most gaming laptops. So this is a plug-into-game machine, but a decent unplugged productivity machine. The most surprising discovery for me was the keyboard and overall usability. I expected a mushy, cramped experience, but the Thin 15 keyboard is actually comfortable. Key travel is decent, the layout is mostly standard, and for typing long sessions, it felt better than I thought a budget gaming machine would. The trackpad is just okay. Not horrible, not MacBook level, just serviceable. And you do get a good selection of ports: HDMI, USB-A, USB-C, and Ethernet, so you can easily plug into an external monitor and build a desk setup around it. Now, here is what nobody tells you. The real value of the MSI Thin 15 depends massively on which configuration you buy. The RTX 2050 and low RAM variants start to feel underpowered pretty fast in newer titles and multitasking. The RTX 4050 or 4060 options with at least 16 GB of RAM and a 512 GB or 1 TB SSD are where this laptop suddenly becomes interesting. I spent hours tweaking settings, running benchmarks, and comparing it mentally against chunkier options from ASUS, Acer, and Lenovo. Thicker laptops at the same price often give you slightly better thermals and sometimes a brighter display, but you pay with weight and bulk. The Thin 15 sits in that sweet spot where, if you value portability and do not need every last frame per second, it starts making a lot of sense. Is it too good to be true? Not exactly. You are trading away premium materials, top-tier brightness, quiet fans, and long battery life for a thinner body and solid 1080p gaming. It is not a miracle machine, but if you treat it as a portable 1080p gaming and productivity laptop instead of a desktop replacement, it performs way better than I expected. Now that you know where the Thin 15 actually shines, and where it clearly cuts corners, the next step is choosing the right spec so you do not get stuck with a weak configuration. I have linked the versions I recommend along with the best current prices in the description. Grab it there if you decide it fits your needs, especially before sales or stock shortages mess with the pricing. Bottom line: if you want a thin, relatively light laptop that can play modern games at 1080p, handle school or work, and not destroy your back, the MSI Thin 15 is genuinely worth considering, but only in the right configuration. If you are a serious competitive gamer chasing the highest frames, or you need a color-accurate, super bright screen for professional creative work, you should probably look at thicker, more premium options. For students, casual to mid-level gamers, and anyone who wants one machine for class, work, and evening gaming, the Thin 15 hits a very practical sweet spot. Just remember, it is not the hype, not the marketing, and not even the thin design that matters most here. It is knowing exactly what you are getting into before you click buy.